45 years in keeping Louisville weird, Electric Ladyland has been there for all your eccentricities. While they do offer the best smoking supplies out on the market today, there's a whole lot more to check out. From ashtrays and blacklight posters, to records, incense and burners, and items to stock your metaphysical supply. They are open from 10 to 10, 7 days a week, located at 2325 Bardstown Road in Louisville, Kentucky, and at electricladyland420.com. Roll out.
Hey metalheads, you like tattoos? Of course you do. If you're in the Louisville, Kentucky area, come on over the bridge to Clarksville, Indiana, and get you some ink done at Ageless Art. If ink isn't your thing, they have a piercing studio as well. Visit agelessartclarksville.com to see some frequently asked questions, meet the staff. The shop is open Monday through Thursday, 12 to 8 p.m., Saturdays, 12 to 10 p.m., and Sundays, 12 to 6 p.m., all appointment-only spots. You can set up your appointments by phone at 812-283-1793 or email agelessarttatoosandpiercing@gmail.com and someone will get you set up for your first or your next tattoo or piercing.
Hey metalheads, after going to a rager, what's your ultimate go-to? Mine is totally pizza. So when Overload is playing, or I'm promoting the Metal Forge live showcases, or the big goddamn metal show, I go to Pizza DoNisi. Pizza DoNisi is gourmet artisan pizza from right here in Louisville, Kentucky. It features things like the pizza of the month, to sandwiches, and also vegetarian and vegan options, which is so totally fucking cool for all of it's awesome pizza. You definitely want to go. Hey, and also from time to time they do cannolis. Oh, so fucking good. You know what they said, man? Leave the gun, take the cannoli. Yeah, just like that in Godfather. They're located right next to the Mag Bar at 1396 South 2nd Street. So either stop in or call in at 502-213-0488. They're open till midnight. The witching hour.
Heineken? Fuck that shit! Pabst Blue Ribbon!
Hey metalheads, you all hear me talk about Mag Bar all the time. It is the home to the Metal Forge live showcases and is an integral stop in the Ultimate Underground Metal Tour schedule. They obviously feature live music, but the Mag Bar also has daily specials like Pint and Slice Night on Tuesdays with Pizza DoNisi. But they also do Bring Your Own Vinyl on Thursdays with DJ Kent Jackson, and Finer Things Sundays. Located right next to Pizza DoNisi at 1398 South 2nd Street, open 3 p.m. to 4 a.m. 7 days a week. Get your asses out to the Mag Bar. Rock out.
In a broken wasteland, come to my fire and place your blood and steel upon my pyre. Oh, this is the Metal Forge. 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 Metal Forge. My furnace starts to glow with crimson coal.
What's going on, metalheads? Thank you all for tuning into this week's episode of the Metal Forge. My name is Mark Jackson, and I am your host. This is the last episode of June. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is here already. You know, it just feels like we started this year, and it's already halfway over. So, some cool things. Today I have James from Amiensus here in the Metal Forge, and we are talking about Reclimation Part 1 and starting Part 2, because by the time we recorded this interview back around the end of April, there was some pretty cool stuff going on. They had just released the first part of Reclimation, and then they announced that they were releasing a second part with about, over total about 90 minutes of music over 2 parts. So super rad stuff. We're going to check in with him here soon. But before we get into it, ISAL, I'm gonna say something about this. We recorded over the weekend, and it was such a rad experience because it's like getting together and recording with other people and just going and remembering like the old school way of doing things when I used to record on cassette tape and shit like that with 4 tracks and bounce those down, and you just had to go and do it that way instead of doing anything digital. So, super fun, super wild times. It reminded me of like the first time I ever got together to record with any bands and everything. So, it's kind of nostalgic, and I really liked that part of it. It was wild because, I'm used to getting in the studio and doing my thing while I'm there with, say, Mike in Overload, and then this time everyone was there, and it's kind of like being under a microscope, and where I was just like, oh wow, this is wild as shit. Have to remember those days when I was in other bands that we recorded that way too, so. But that's all I'm going to say on that. But today I am going to include a primer in the description below for progressive black metal, because I am not too big on it, meaning I don't know that much about it. So hopefully you all will click the link, you'll check it out, you'll get into some of the other bands that are listed there. You'll further your musical your tastes and stuff like that. That's what this show is all about. But I do want to say one thing before getting into the music, that the live streams have been fun. They've been going really well. And I will be live streaming on July 3rd, because that is the 100-day mark to Big Goddamn Metal Show. And I am going to live stream that night with the bands. Not like on the show, but with the announcement of bands and everything else. So, hell yeah. Who wants to listen to some fucking progressive black fucking metal? I know I do. So, we talk about this in the interview. This is consciousness throughout time. All right, metalheads, this week we are here with James Benson from Amiensus, progressive black metal on the Metal Forge. Holy shit. I don't know if you're a first because I've done so many episodes now, I have to go back and look and see. It's like, wait a minute, have I had this type of band on the show? And then I don't know. I know I've had very few black metal bands on the show just because it's not my forte. So when Austin sent me the email with the new album that we're going to be talking about today, it sparked my interest, and I said, you know what? Fucking, I got to do this. I got to get these guys. I've got to have them on the show. So, aside all of that, how the fuck are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. It's just a nice Monday afternoon in Minnesota here. The weather's actually cooperating for the first time. We got more snow over the last 3 weeks than we pretty much did all of the winter. It's the mildest winter I can recall in my lifetime since I've lived here over the last 20 years at least.
Sure. And, I'm in the Louisville area, and our winter was pretty relaxed as well. And here just a couple of weeks ago, like you said, you got the most snow, and over the last few weeks, we've dropped down temperature. Like we were like 70 degrees at the end of February. And then through March, it was just like, at least the last 3 weeks of this, by the time we're recording this, it was just like, damn, what happened? It turned winter again. It was like fall, spring in the Midwest.
Yeah. February was actually pretty nice, which usually is the month that we get absolutely destroyed by winter.
Same.
And instead it was March this year. So it's been a while. I mean, honestly, over the last decade, it's warmed up so much that March is usually pretty decent. But we've already gotten snow in April, and it's gone already. We got like 9 inches of snow last weekend, and it's gone, and it's 50 degrees today. So I'm not going to complain about that.
Oh, hell no. So are you a native Minnesotan?
What's that?
Are you a native Minnesotan?
Yeah. Yep, I am. Kind of background, I was born in Rochester, Minnesota. That's where Amiensus is originally kind of from. I moved out to the East Coast, lived in Pennsylvania until I was going into high school, and then I moved back to Minnesota when I was about 14. So I've been here minus a couple of years of college in Illinois. I've been in Minnesota since about 2004.
Okay, cool. So it's like being home again. And honestly, between like Wisconsin and Minnesota, there are some awesome fucking metal bands that have come out of that area. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure it's because that, like you were talking about the winter, the winter lasts so long up there, just like, you're like southern Canada almost, to where...
Oh, definitely.
To where all you really have to do is to sit indoors in the wintertime and play your instrument. Pretty much. I mean, going not to jump too far ahead, but this album was because winter and COVID happened. So as we're talking about this, might as well go ahead and bring it up. Out on April the 26th, which is actually my birthday, so that's fucking cool. Reclimation Part 1. It is 8 tracks of brutality and it's everything. I mean, I dig it. That's good. Released through M Theory. It's definitely a mixed bag. Everything from long acoustic passages to acoustic focused songs to entirely acoustic songs, as well as some death metal and black metal influence overall. Sure. So talk about the writing process for the album. You said that it was kind of a COVID winter thing that spawned the creation. Yeah. So back in October 2020 is when our third full-length album had come out. And it had been 5 years at that point since we had released a full-length record. It had been 2015 to 2020. And in that meantime, we'd done a few splits. We'd done a couple singles. We did an EP that was actually like 30 minutes long, which, I mean, at this point in my life, I'm not sure if 30 minutes is an EP or an You got to ask Slayer. You know, we always have that same conversation on here. It's like Slayer came out with 28-minute albums, and everybody else was doing like, you know, like 45 minutes and shit.
Yep. And that's still like, I think I still consider like 38 to be the cutoff technically. I think I'd raise it up to there. Like, I've done some EPs that have been in that 30-minute range, and I'm like, a lot of people pass this off as an album nowadays, but depending on how many tracks there are, the problem with Amiensus and most black metal bands is that we write 5 tracks and it's 40 minutes and we call that an album. It's still only 5 tracks, but it's 40 minutes long. So the longer songs kind of make up for it in that aspect versus like obviously Slayer being a much more fast-paced, like the BPM of their songs is usually probably at least 30% faster than half the stuff that we write, but that's not the case with this album. So in terms of like the writing, so back to, we released our third EP in October, or third LP in October of 2020, and pretty much we finished that album by like June-ish of 2020. Obviously that was like the height of lockdown was kind of just ending at that point, and at that point, we were kind of really itching, trying to figure out, like, okay, what's going on with this COVID thing? We hadn't been on tour since 2018 at that point, and we only played a few shows in 2019. So we finished the album, and really things just went back into with, like, the second wave of the Delta variant of COVID by the time we released our album. So we got locked up again. I mean, it wasn't like lockdown again, but it was, lots of COVID precautions going on. 2020, we were still getting, it was nowhere like this year's winter where we normally get at least 10 feet of snow. I'm in the southern half I'm below Minneapolis, actually, about an hour and a half. So I'm not actually worse off than the closer parts, like to Canada, like Duluth. But basically the combination of not having anywhere to go or things to see or things to do, being locked up, because basically November, even going back to October, but October basically to April, and even like you said, your birthday's April 26th, mine's May 2nd, and I can tell you 10 years ago on my birthday, we got 2 feet of snow. Now that's
still
unusual.
Wild as shit to me. Real quick, with coming from the band's inception, based on the Metal Archives, it's showing it's around 2010. Looking at your album titles, are we looking at a concept here?
Yeah, kind of. I think with the first, like our first album was called Restoration, that came out, depending on, where you read, either December 31st, 2012 or January 1st, 2013. And I honestly don't remember anymore if we did it on New Year's or we did it on New Year's Day 100% anymore. I know we had like a party when we released it, because that was our first album, and we were all pretty young. We were like 22, 21 at the time, but I don't remember which day it actually was anymore, because it's been a minute. And
I'm sure there was alcohol involved.
Yep, there was. And because I was young, I didn't drink hardly nearly that much back then. But there's not an overarching concept necessarily that like ties all the albums together, but obviously we have chosen the suffix ION generally for every full-length album. Other EPs, singles, stuff like that don't matter, but the full-length records: Restoration, Ascension, Abreaction, and now Reclimation Part 1 and Part 2.
Sure.
Because Reclimation is technically a double album, since it's 90 minutes and 15 tracks in total, but Part 1 is 8 tracks, and I think probably runs like 53 or 54 minutes of that length, or I'm not sure, 55 even.
Yeah, it's something like that, because
Part 2 is a little bit shorter because it's 7 tracks, but
right. But even still, on the Part 1, there's not a song under 5. So
correct, yeah, and it's 8, so it's over 35 for sure. Because I know at least 2 songs are probably 9 to 10. So
sure,
there's the dogs,
and that's awesome that you've actually. I think when you get a strong one-word album title that's stark, whether it just be Reclimation, or whatever, this BAM, this. I think album titles that just that are strong words, and it relates back to when you think about albums. I mean, so you're also talking about this being a part 2, being a double album, which going into it, I kind of guessed that it was going to be that way. Ultimately, I know it's probably going to come down to pressing costs and the money aspect of it. But why didn't it just get released as the full 15 tracks? Was that even an option?
It wasn't. Yeah, it is definitely due to pressing costs. That's 100% the most accurate way to describe it. It was kind of a thing where we initially had a previous label before M Theory. We said, hey, this is what we've got. We're X amount of time away from probably finishing it. Where are you guys at? And they're like, we can't afford that at all. And we were like, okay, that sucks. And they were like, honestly, we're good. We'll cancel the contract. We feel like you fulfilled it anyway. Go ahead and find what you need or do whatever you need to do. We don't want to stay or be a barrier for you guys doing what you need to do. And that super appreciated that. I've had bad experiences with labels in the past, with Amiensus specifically. And so I'm going to shout them out. Black Lion Records from Sweden. They have awesome bands on there. They're really cool guys. I appreciate that they let us do what we needed to do to be able to release this behemoth. But besides it becoming a cost thing, I guess the idea kind of got into my head because one of my other bands, one of the other members basically was like, hey, in today's day and age, metal is one of the few genres of music that releases full-length albums regularly. A lot of the mainstream music, and I'm as somebody who listens to all kinds of dumb shit, I've been to K-pop concerts. Yeah, I think the only thing that I can say I'm definitively not a huge fan of is country in general, but even then I can find some country here and there.
Sure.
They tend to just release singles. That's the format since streaming's been around for 15 years plus now. So we were like, a double album's not a bad concept simply because it's 90 minutes long. And so breaking it up into 2 halves kind of makes sense.
Sure.
And we didn't have to restructure track order. We were just like, okay, where's a sensible break in this track list? And it really felt like Transcendence Through Grief, which is the 8th track, was a really good moment because, and not to spoil anything, there's tie-ins to that track on the second half, thematically and musically. So there's some tie-in back to track 8 off of part 1, which I think it's pretty cool. I don't want to spoil anything, but
hell yeah. So
it became hey, we can stretch out, we can do a double release and it could come out over the course of X amount of months instead of just your typical 3 months, here's 3 singles, album drop for a full album. I mean, with 15 songs, it was kind of it doesn't make sense to drop 3 of these. Because
sure.
Honestly, thinking about streaming where most people are going to consume this media in the first place, most people are going to listen to the first track and whatever other singles you released, honestly. Those get the most plays by default. When people discover new music, they click play on an album, the most rated, highly rated album kind of thing. So we split it up so that it gets a little bit better coverage with the streaming aspect because we were going to release 5 singles total, 2 from part 2, 3 obviously from part 1. The 3rd single comes out this Wednesday, the 10th. And also because mainly the pressing costs of doing that level or that much vinyl in particular would have been we looked at it. It was $15,000
easily, yeah. And that's the thing too, is going back, and it seems like now especially in metal, it seems to be the norm of where you get multiple pressings or deluxe editions or just double albums. Iron Maiden has released 2 double albums back to back. It's like the status quo of like release. And while it sucks ultimately to have production costs so high that you can't put out the product you intended to originally, it does kind of add like a little bit of like a Lord of the Rings mythos to it. Like, you know, because that's exactly what happened to Tolkien with Lord of the Rings. The production cost to put them all 3 in one novel was too expensive in the fucking, the 50s or early 60s.
Or late 50s. Yeah, was it 56, I think?
Something like that. Yeah, it's in the... I know it was either... Yeah, I think it was the late 50s. But even
I feel
still...
like 56 was Return of the King, but don't quote me.
Right. And you're probably
like
right. But it's interesting that, you know, even, you know, 70 years later, we're still fighting that same fucking beast.
I know. It's great. I mean, that is, when you put it in that perspective, I mean, like, my parents passed down, they're not original pressings, they're probably like second or third pressings of the paperback of The Fellowship, The Two Towers, and Return of the King. So I have some copies that are from like the early 60s even. That's wild. Yeah, and it says like, I think original pressing, I think it was 56, but it still limits the medium to some degree.
Sure.
And I think we've all, like, as the band, obviously, I'm not the band by itself. I'm just generally the person that's usually the most outspoken, so I end up doing interviews and stuff to talk about music. I write the lyrics, so that's kind of partially why I get asked to do a lot of that stuff too. But
of course, because it is ultimately vocally your direction at that point.
Yeah, and we have all had differing thoughts and feelings throughout the process. I mean, we finished everything in like September of 2023, and that's when we kind of turned it in. And it wasn't initially like, hey, we're going to do this. This is going to be a release schedule. We're going to do a 2-part album. I mean, I presented that idea, and I didn't really know definitively for sure until basically like close to December when we released the first single, if it was going to be a 2-part like double album entirely. So, but I ultimately, you know, it kind of came down to me deciding like, okay, we have to press it in 2 separate things. So what do you want to do? Do you want to call it something different? And I was like, no, we designed the artwork to match. Like, it's going to look like this, and I'd rather just it be part 1 and part 2. So I call it album 4, but like really in my mind it's album 4 and 5 at the same time.
Sure.
So
which
they're different. They're very different pieces. So
and this got brought up in an interview recently, and I think it's amazing that once you hit that mark, you know, that 5th album mark, it tends to be like that's when everybody just drops it as that's your sellout album.
Yeah. Well, I hope it is. I'd be happy if it was myself. Like, to be fair, my opinion on this is not bad or weird, but like I'm the kind of person that loves when bands attempt to do like, okay, 10 years ago, this was my vocal range. This is how I sounded when I did harsh vocals. This is the recording equipment I had back then. Ultimately, a lot of those things have changed, but recording equipment's not too vastly different. Still using an SM7B. Same mic.
Yep, right here. Exactly. Got it right here,
exactly. Yeah. Still using the same SM7B. But which is behind me. I should have hooked that up because I have a computer in front of me, but interfaces have gotten vastly better. DAWs have gotten vastly better, but I like when bands attempt to do a little bit of a throwback. I guess I'm trying to think of a better word than throwback. More like, I like when bands do kind of callbacks to certain things. And in part 1 and part 2, and I'm trying to think exactly which songs I did most of it. I think it's part 2. There's a lot of lyrical throwback, but part 1 included a lot of musical throwback to earlier albums from me personally. because like Restoration, our first album, was the first time I'd ever really like written guitar in my life. I was 18 when we started writing that. 2010, I was 19 years old. That's when we like really buttoned down and tried to finish it. But 18 when I really picked up guitar. I was just a harsh vocalist and singer in bands as a teen. And I really attempted to throw some callbacks to people who have listened to Amiensus, because I personally love that as a listener of music. And also I wanted to say like, hey, I appreciate you listening for this long. If you've been listening to Amiensus for 11 years at this point, which, you know, most of those people are actually now personal friends of mine. If they have been listening for that long, I've probably been in touch with them. I probably sent them merch. We probably follow each other on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or something. I wanted to do that. So that's a really long-winded excuse. I can talk a lot.
No, that's absolutely, you know, that's great for it. You know, that's the thing of, I think, what we were getting at there. So,
yeah.
So fuck yeah. Obviously, part 1 was released April 26th. Part 2 is coming when?
I believe it'll be August. We don't have a definitive date, but everything's in production already at this point. So I'm just kind of waiting on approving test presses at this point, which may come this month even. So
hell yeah.
Once that's lined up, we'll have a date for sure.
Nice. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Derailed here. These are 5 random questions about you as a person. I pull these from an interview deck, from various interview decks from a vast storage library on the burner phone. Not really a burner phone. Come on. Yeah. It's not that bad. What is your theme song and why?
My personal theme song?
Yep.
My personal theme song. Okay. Ooh, that's a real good one. I have an automatic like go-to answer for that, like that immediately popped in my head. But like with further thought, I'm sure I could adjust it. But I'm gonna go with Led Zeppelin's "Fool in the Rain."
Nice. Not a song I would have expected, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's the black metal thing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I mean, at this point, I know we didn't dive into it at the beginning. The dogs are playing.
Oh, that's okay.
We didn't dive into it a lot, but black metal is a pretty loose label for us anymore. We certainly have black metal tracks on albums as a whole, and we've written black metal albums, but loosely speaking, there's probably only 2 out of 15 songs that qualify as being black metal, and then a few that definitely feel black metal influenced on part 1 and part 2.
Sure.
And then the others are probably more just I'm just going to throw the metal tag on them, because I'll let you decide as a listener. Like,
sure, no, I totally get that, and it's the idea of bands changing over time, you know, the genre changes over time.
Oh yeah,
you know, not and it is bands like yours and mine and Night Demon and Haunt and Temptation's Wings that change those genres to what they are. Savage Master, those bands, you know, that are out there doing it, playing out, putting out albums that are top fucking quality albums, and though that's where the genre, you get this on one end and this on the other and everything in between. It's so many awesome colors of music that all fall under, you know, metal. And I think it was Chuck who sat there and said that he hated the fucking over genreification of music, of metal in particular, because it's like, you know, we're all fucking fighting for the same. Fuck yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're all fighting for the same fucking thing. You're all fucking heavy. It's fucking metal. Just let it fucking be metal.
Exactly. That's how ultimately how I feel about it. I know, like, I'll post our music in like black metal subreddits or Facebook groups when it's a black metal song, for sure. And like, not going to sit here and say that I don't listen to black metal and that I don't definitely attempt to write black metal at certain points. But obviously. My influence is, like I said, and everybody's generally is a lot wider than that. And, you know, if you're over 20 years old, you have a, you know, expanded view of the world, how that works, I hope. You know, there's still black metal purists, but if they're older than 20 years old and they're only about pure black metal that sounds pretty much the same repetitively over and over, I still listen to that stuff too, don't get me wrong, but man, life is so colorful and there's so much to listen to and experience. It's amazing.
So I think you would just sit there and said that you would not be black metal because life was so colorful, not just fucking black and white.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I love black metal. I love black metal musically.
I know.
And
I'm just joshing
will never
on that.
Not taint what I do in some way, and what I write, in, like, especially on guitar. And like, I don't think, you know, vocally, it's one of those things that, like, I've always been told that I sound like a black metal vocalist, and I was like, I never knew how to do anything different than what I do.
Right.
So it's hard for me to imagine harsh vocals or screaming in a different way, because that's the only technique I ever learned, which I'm not sure constitutes, it's not fry. It's not that like kind of smaller, weaker. I do that sometimes when I'm demoing songs, but it's a full voice, but I always tell people it starts with my falsettos,
Sure.
singing voice. And I also use it for lows at the same time. So, but anyway, sorry.
That's
Fool in the
awesome,
Rain,
actually.
Led Zeppelin.
Nice.
That's my theme song.
Fuck yeah. Before making a phone call, do you ever rehearse what you're going to say?
Yes, absolutely. All the time.
Why?
Confidence in the way that I say the words that I intend to. It definitely applies to my profession. I'm a counselor.
Okay.
So I do make a lot of phone calls to either clients or treatment centers or doctors. So usually I'm not a write it out kind of script kind of person, but usually in the back of my head, I kind of think for a second before I make a phone call. And I'm a millennial and I don't like phone calls that much.
Yeah, that's the. I like this. This is like my phone calls. Like, so I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 83 and fucking like, okay. So I grew up in the time that was before most fucking internet and cell phone shit. So we would talk on the phone. Oh, there's the puppy.
There's one of them.
And, so yeah, is that the one that sounds like the Nazgul you said?
No, it's not. The other one is she's actually in the room still. She's also a cattle dog mix. This guy's a cattle dog min pin here. This is Lupin. He's my oldest.
Oh,
he's 9.
Oh, big sweetie. How can we know for sure that there is an afterlife?
How can we? Is that the next question?
Sure.
Ooh, how can we know for sure? I think ultimately nobody can, unless there was an all-seeing or omnipotent being that would be able to break the wall to describe it. Fun fact, and I'm sure anybody that really has closely paid attention to Amiensus may know this over the years, but I went to Bible college, and so one of my 2 bachelor's degrees is in biblical theology.
Interesting.
And so while it's been almost a dozen years since I graduated, or 11 years since I graduated college, with my bachelor's at least, I definitely have been more on the agnostic side for most of my adult life, even through Bible college. It was a requirement that I completed that biblical theology bachelor's degree, but I don't think there is any scientifically provable, and I know that science is not what is maybe accepted in religious circles as a way to prove, but ultimately all of the smartest believing professors I ever met, meaning Christian theologists, professors that I ever met who have published a lot of books over the years, would tell me that it becomes simply a matter of belief, because the inerrancy of biblical texts, for example, and I can't speak on other religions in particular, but I would say having some various studies of that while in college, it falls into the same concepts for the most part. It's very provably written in a certain period of time.
Sure.
And inerrancy is everywhere. So there's plenty of biblical texts that are contradictory, stating simple facts about historical evidence. There's plenty of revisions. There's plenty of different versions. There's plenty of texts that haven't actually been ever discovered to know who the author is. That was terrible English, but there's not a distinctive author for a good chunk of the latter half of the New Testament, for example. So raised in a Christian environment in the States where Christianity is still the dominant religion, I would say that there is no provable way, unless there was a deity that was willing to be more than deism. The concept of deism initially stood out to me a lot when I was younger, before I even went to college, because of the concept of God being kind of like this omnipotent being that they call it the clockmaker, where he designed the world and stepped back and just kind of lets the clock tick as things continue to cycle and watches. And that's, I guess, as an agnostic now, I guess if I were to say I entertain any possibility of a God, it would be that, and therefore we could never know if there is an afterlife.
Sure. I agree with that. And the way you had actually just explained that really conjured up the thought of Dogma, the film, where that's just exactly, I think, how Kevin Smith was implying it in that, but takes a week off or a day off once a month and goes and plays skee ball anywhere as anybody. And I think that's interesting. And I definitely am one of the people that believes in that we're cycled through conscious and everything. So there's a whole thing for that. There's a track about that on track number 4 on Reclimation Part 1 called A Consciousness Throughout Time. Yep. Yes, I know. And actually, I was probably going to play that one on here today. Okay. In the US, we have this thing that we all somewhat subscribe to, and it's conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. I think that it's more prevalent here than anywhere else, I think. So what are your go-to conspiracy theory websites? Whether it's to, just to debunk or to say, holy shit, is this real?
Oh, I can't say that there's any specific websites, but back in the day, when I say back in the day, I mean 15 or maybe slightly less than that, maybe 10 to 15 years ago.
Sure. Around 2010 to 2015.
There was a documentary series called Zeitgeist. But nowadays, probably for the last decade, it's been Reddit, our conspiracy on Reddit.
Sure. Yeah, and Reddit is a monster. The subreddit that everybody talks about every fucking thing on there. It is so wild. Mm-hmm. And for the people who don't use it, it's definitely interesting. It's kind of like everything brought to one, I guess. Mm-hmm. Because it's like the Wild West.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's conspiracies of it used to be a little I'm just gonna out myself as not being a conservative, but pre Donald Trump, it was definitely more focused on a myriad of topics. There was conspiracies, not only the major ones JFK, MK Ultra, moon landing, that type of stuff.
Sure.
9/11, obviously. It was conspiracies about even smaller subjects, including aliens, but on a micro scale of
everything.
This could be alien abduction and stuff. And unfortunately, it's been politicized a little bit since 2016, and so a good chunk of what gets posted on there is pretty mixed any day, like being political, which it sucks the fun out of it. But
yeah, it does. It
used to
really
be
does.
Prime. It used to be Prime. So I still read it though on a pretty weekly basis.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, because you got to look and see like what crazy shit people are talking about. It's like, it's like whatever it may be. I don't know. I mean, I can't even think of a good one right now. But
the Epstein subreddit is also pretty good.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Because like everybody keeps getting added to the list.
Yep.
Everybody does. It doesn't matter who it is. It's yeah. No, I don't know. Like they're just so fucked up.
Yeah, I'm most disappointed in Chris Tucker being on the flight logs because big fan of Rush Hour. That was my favorite movie. So
Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Damn. See, that sucks.
Corbin. Yeah. That was so good.
Yes. Corbin, my man. Corbin, my man.
Yes.
Dude, I watch wrestling like a fucking nerd. And this is how, like, whenever this gets released, this is how when you're going to know when this was recorded. It's because WrestleMania was just this past weekend. Yep. And Seth fucking Rollins on night one fucking reminded me so much of Ruby Rod.
Oh man, what? I've only seen some clips.
What's the most exotic meat you've ever eaten?
Ooh, that's gotta be. So I've been pescatarian for like 7 years. So okay. I've only eaten like regular meat a couple of times in the last like 7 years, basically since 2017. But in that time period, actually maybe it's right before that, year before, crocodile's probably the most exotic thing. I've had plenty of venison in my life. I had duck in New Orleans in December. That was really good.
Okay.
It was like a duck and seafood. What's the soup-ish type stuff called down there? Not jambalaya.
No, because oh my gosh,
blanking on it.
Yeah, I can't even fucking think of it right now. Son of a.
It's not like etouffee or something like that. It's wow, I'm blanking on it. It's like a soup, but it was seafood and duck. Yeah, it was like the last.
That sounds actually really good. Actually,
yeah.
I've had alligator. If we're talking through like protein, I've had ostrich eggs.
Oh yeah, they're good too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's
really
a lot of yield there.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a 6 egg.
I probably, like, you name it, fish wise. I'm a pretty big fish connoisseur. I love seafood. I love lake fish because I live in the Midwest. So like nothing beats like a good fried walleye. But at the same time, I will eat like rainbow trout. I have smoked rainbow trout in my freezer right now.
Nice. That sounds actually really good.
If I can catch it. I love catfish. Catfish.
Okay,
best,
you got me there.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I don't know, like for me, like bluegill tastes a certain way. Everything does, but like catfish to me, I don't like the taste of catfish.
It's like the dark meat of the lake.
I mean, yeah, it kind of is. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I just have never really acquired a taste. Plus, one time, I do remember, we had it for lunch one time at school, and I got a bone in mine, and it like stuck through the roof of my mouth.
So that's pretty rough. Yeah.
It's like hard pass. Hard fucking pass. But I have one more question, but before we get to it, as always, links are listed below, so please give a like, a share, and a follow. Go buy merch, see these guys when they play live. Any dates coming up where you're gonna do the entire show?
The entire show?
Yeah, like part 1 and part 2 in its entirety.
Oh God. I don't know that I am physically in good enough shape for that, but
Yeah, that's a lot. You said it was 90
my
minutes.
drummer. Yeah, I mean, at least there's some breaks in there because there's acoustic stuff. But no, probably no chance of ever doing the whole 90 minutes. That would probably be like I think my longest set's been an hour ever, and
that's even rough.
Yeah, I mean, like I run on a treadmill most mornings, but that's only since I've been in my 30s.
Sure. Do you have any shout-outs?
Live dates next year. Probably none this year. There's been some health issues with some of our guitar players that since last year, ironically, like right as we were finishing everything, had a couple pretty crazy moments. Kelsey, our guitar player, was hospitalized for like 2 months. Had a pretty bad staph infection, actually.
Ouch.
Still has some medical procedures to get done coming up here this summer. So I know his next one's in May. So yeah, kind of had to put that on the back burner until he's healthy enough for that. So
sure. Do you have any shout outs or anything else you'd like to promote today?
Woo! I guess I'll mention some of my friends' bands. I'll mention some of my bands as well.
Sure.
As James of Amiensus, I'm the vocalist in a lot of stuff that I'm in. Currently, and most recently, I should say that Chrome Waves, featuring ex-Nuck Mystium, ex-Abigail Williams members, we released an album with M Theory as well in April of 2023. And we will be on tour in June and July. June will be the East Coast. July will be Midwest mostly for a couple weeks there. Kind of in support of that album, even though we just did a few weeks in December and January with Chrome Waves. I play guitar and sing in that band. More in the post-black metal-ish range of music. Comatose, which I'm wearing my hat of, is my grunge rock band. We have a new album coming out sometime this summer. We are getting mixes back as I speak. Not, which I believe on one side of my hat is the pin, right there, is my formerly solo, now duo black metal project. If you're looking for something that sounds more like Amiensus that doesn't have the singing in it, Not is the one for you. Still doing that one. We have an EP and a split coming out this year. What else am I doing? Soulshade is my more metalcore, think late 2000s, Define the Great Line to Disambiguation Under Oath, if you know the term. I sing a lot. I scream a lot. It's more of that like Norma Jean Under Oath style of metalcore. I think I'm covering all of my bases at the moment, right? I think that's it.
Hell yeah, man.
Other than that, my friends releasing really fucking dope music right now. Oak Pantheon released their third album last year. They're friends of mine from Minneapolis. Ash Springer as well. They've been out on tour with Amiensus multiple times in the past. Silva, another great local band that's new, featuring some of my former band members and current band members. Former band member / current band member Joe from Amiensus. He has a new album that just released last Friday called X Cinere, Cinere, and then it's EX Cinere. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And then I'll shout out my good buddies from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I just went out and did a wedding, officiated a wedding for some of the crew out there last month. They're called Still Stare. If you like kind of that metalcore North Lane style, genty-ish, but very melodic stuff, they are ripping shit out right now. It's awesome. It's amazing.
Fuck yeah, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So hell yeah. Total spread of everything. As you said, you had a grunge band, you have a black metal duo, there's Chrome Waves. Fuck. Hell yeah, dude. Like equal opportunity offender. Yeah, I've done a lot. I mean, and that's not every band. Adora Vivos was my June band. We no longer exist, but we did a split with Amiensus in 2020, and then we had an album come out the same year as Restoration, our first album. Hail to Decay was my deathcore band. That's the only one that I did not do vocals in. Besides backing, I played bass, and we are now the grunge band, however, instead. So, shit, yeah, man.
We went from deathcore to grunge.
Hey. Why not? I mean, people change. People do.
I promise it's not bad. It's good. It's good music.
Hell yeah.
I promise.
So I have one more question, and it is,
Sure.
Should we actively be searching for alien life?
That's a multifaceted question. I would say yes, we should be, but at the risk of discovering civilizations that could be openly negative for human experience. So I'm trying to remember the name of I'm not sure if he was just like a writer or a philosopher. I want to say his name is Nikolai Levashov. Was that him? No. Let me find out. So he wrote this theory about like civilization. Oh no, Kardashev. The Kardashev scale. So the Kardashev scale is about civilizations and their ability to harness power. And so he has like a stage 1 to stage I think 5. Let me double check. In which he talks specifically like, okay, if you have it's type. Okay, so type 1 through type 3 is how it goes.
Right, and this is the thing that they were talking about in Signs.
Is that, I can't remember Signs. It's been so long. M. Night Shyamalan makes a movie every year.
Yeah, and I quit watching after like The Village though.
Yeah. That was a good time. The Happening was not it.
No, definitely not. I did watch that, and it was well after it came out, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" No, where it's like their ability to.
It's like a cult classic now, though.
It's like where they come through as either depleted resources where they are, and. Yeah, it's like they've depleted their resources and they're seeking out other places, or they are actually on a mission of peace, or they're hostile and they want to take over everything. Yep.
And so it's like he devised this scale to basically say like a type 1 is a civilization close to the level currently achieved on Earth with an energy consumption. It's millijoules. A type 1 civilization is usually defined as one that can harness all the energy that reaches its home planet from its parent star. So we're not even quite a type 1 as we are, and I think that's the vastness of the universe that we have to deal with, is that type 2, a civilization capable of harnessing the energy radiated by its own large star, for example, by successfully completing a Dyson sphere with an energy consumption, again, a huge number, basically comparable to the luminosity of the sun. So we're not even close to being able to harness the energy of the sun, for example. And so ultimately with what we know about the observable universe right now, if we were to run into a type 2 or a type 3 civilization, I fear that it would be probably enslavement for humanity at best, if not just totally being wiped out. So I think it's important to look for other civilizations and aliens, as we would just a blanket term for non-human life. But at the same time, we've got plenty of our own problems to solve. But I think we have to solve our own problems, and we have to look towards what's out there.
Sure. Absolutely. Dude, James, thank you so fucking much for coming on the Metal Forge this week. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you. On our way out today from part 1 of Reclimation, what do you want to play?
Ooh, off of part 1, I guess I'm gonna pick Senses Amplified, track 3.
Hell yeah, it's third track. So here we go. This is Senses Amplified. Yeah, awesome, man. Let me hit the stop button. In 2017, one man's vision and passion for all things metal started out as a record store in his house. Years later, the fight against a mainstream empire continues as Shadebeast. An independent metal collective and online store based in Athens, Georgia, is the world's premier heavy metal brand for music heads that value authenticity over the mainstream acceptance. Featuring original t-shirts from some of the best underground artists, as well as stickers, posters from the Shadebeast Presents concert series. Unique, one-of-a-kind collectibles and small curated selection of vinyl and cassettes from the masters old and new. Visit shadebeast.com and enter promo code SithLord for free domestic shipping on your first order, whether you're a new customer or returning.
And be sure to join the Shadebeast social groups on Facebook and the interwebs to keep up with the new release announcements and talk all things metal and Star Wars. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and filth.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Since 2013, there has been a calling from the underground, from the graves of all those unholy, and they decided to make a zine to talk about all of this. Soul Grinder Zine! An independent metal zine to keep you informed on all things metal and horror from the underground. Available in both print and digital formats, they're bringing you the best interviews and reviews out there today. Not only do they do the zine, but they also do compilation CDs. Check them out at facebook.com/soulgrinder.zine and start your subscription now.
Hey everybody, let me tell you about the new sponsor to the Metal Forge, Unchained Tapes. They're an independent Pennsylvania tape label. They focus on extreme metal and punk with a killer approach to the tape scene. Visit their web store at unchainedtapes.bigcartel.com now to get your fill of tapes. And for being a Metal Forge listener, enter the code METALFORGE10 at checkout to get a 10% discount on your total purchase. That's unchainedtapes.bigcartel.com.
What's up, Metal Forge fans? This is Alan Bishop, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest and head distiller at Spirits of French Lick. Do you find yourself drawn to the unexplained, fascinated by the Fortean, or enchanted by the paranormal? If the things that go bump in the night resonate in your mind, then tune into my brand new podcast, If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. Featuring first-hand accounts, collected stories, interviews, history, and speculation related to all things not of this world. Available now on Anchor, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and more. Set back, relax, and remember, if you have ghosts, you have everything.
Hey, let me tell you guys about Mercenary Press. They're an independent London label and distributor of all things metal. Mercenary Press delivers the goods from their own independent zine. Trust me, you're going to want to get in on that. To distributing various bands from all over the world, including Cramp from Spain and Sadistic Force from Texas. Visit mercenarypress.bigcartel.com to find out what all they have in stock and what you can order. And for Metal Forge listeners, enter code METALFORGE10 to receive a discount on your total purchase at mercenarypress.bigcartel.com. Check it out now.
Hey, Metalheads, it's with great pleasure I get to tell you guys about a new sponsor to the Metal Forge, Ageless Art, New Albany. After 20 years of owning and operating Ageless Art in Clarksville, Indiana, Phil Garrett had a vision for a new type of tattoo studio. Something that is clean and modern, sleek, refined, inviting. And he's done just that with Ageless Art in New Albany. You can find it at 2736 Charlestown Road, New Albany, Indiana, 47150. Business hours are Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Sundays are 12 to 6. All sessions are appointment only, so give them a call and go get you some new ink. Or if it's your first time, go get your first one, baby.